Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the special Thursday edition of PCA Live 3 at 3. In case anybody's wondering, we got a really special guest today to talk about something we haven't really talked about yet on ours, and that is pipe and pipe tobacco. So we're very happy to be joined today by Jeremy McKenna, who's president of Sutliff Tobacco down in Richmond, Virginia. The PCA team had a great opportunity last year, I believe it was, to go down and see Sutliff, and Jeremy gave us a guided tour, got to meet his team down there. So it was really great to be able to see the entire process of how they work down there and get some insights into their company. So we're excited to talk to Jeremy about his company, kind of how they've been going through this crisis and kind of what's coming up next for them, and to kind of get some more insights into the pipe and pipe tobacco industry. And so joining me from PCA today is Holland and Jeremy McKenna from Sutliff Tobacco. Let's bring them up. How is everybody doing today?
Hello.
Hey,
Scott,
doing great. I'm doing well. You're making me look bad. I'm sitting in my house and can't smoke, and I'm the pipe guy, and you're sitting there smoking a pipe. So I appreciate
that. No, see, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this: no one's ever accused me of making them look bad. I mean, when you got this canvas to play with, that's never making anybody look bad. So don't worry about it. We understand people are at home at this time. That's why, I'm very happy and that we have this space at the office to be able to do this from, so that, because like my wife is not letting me smoke inside. So I definitely have a nice little refuge here at the office to be able to do these type of things.
Yeah, I'm the same way at the office. I go in there and smoke my fair share of tobacco once, twice a week, and might sneak out to the garage every now and then. But yeah, so it's a nice joy when I get to enjoy a pipe, just sitting at work and not having anybody complain about the smell or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is my kids love it. My kids will come in and hang out with me when I'm smoking, particularly the pipe. They absolutely love it. I love telling this story. One time, it was the first time I smoked a pipe at home, and on the front porch while I'll smoke oftentimes at my son's bedroom windows right above it. So it was a nice kind of warm evening, and I'm smoking the pipe after they've gone to bed, and all of a sudden I hear him running down the stairs, and he opens up the front door, comes out there, and he goes, "What you doing, Dad?" And I said, "Well, I'm smoking my pipe, buddy." And he goes, "Oh, that just smells so good." And he's like, "Can I sit down?" So I was like, "Yeah, come on, sit down." So he just sat there and hung out with me for about 10 minutes while I smoked a pipe. He just loves it. So every time I pull it out, the pipe, they love it. They love sitting down and relaxing. My wife, on the other hand, she doesn't like it.
Yeah, it's I mean, what you're saying is so true. And I mean, I don't have the personal experience from my life, but when you are on all the different Facebook pages and talking to different groups, and it's always goes back to like someone that their grandfather or their neighbor or their uncle like smoked a pipe and they love the smell, and there's something nostalgic about it. And I mean, there's always a great story behind like how a lot of people got into pipe smoking, whether they, were a cigar smoker and transitioned, or they're dual users. It's always a great story, and most, or not always, but most of the time. And it always relates back to a grandparent or a close neighbor or something like that. So yeah, no, there's lots of stories like that out there.
Yeah, it was, excuse me, I breathed in right as soon as I puffed that out. So it was really interesting. I was listening to a podcast that Tim Ferriss gave to Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite authors. And Neil Gaiman was talking about, he's the author of The American Gods, which is the TV series that's on Starz, and Good Omens that was on Amazon Prime. Brilliant writer, brilliant guy. But he was talking about how he loves this ritual of his fountain pen, and that ritual of filling up the ink, and how that tactile aspect of it infuses kind of his art craft and everything. And for me, when I heard that, I immediately thought of pipe and my approach and my kind of relationship with the pipe, and how the whole aspect of the ritual of filling it out and lighting it and taking your time with it, and the tactile approach and everything else to it is kind of my love affair with the pipe, and why I do enjoy it so much. And so that's kind of what it reminded me of, is when he was talking about that fountain pen, which I also do love too, by the way. But that aspect of the pipe smoke, and that's oftentimes why I prefer to be kind of my own alone time with the pipe, is because of that aspect that it allows me to slow down, allows me to enjoy it, allows me to kind of reminisce and do what I need to do mentally. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely a dual user. I think a lot of pipe smokers are dual users, for that matter. Based on surveys we've conducted, I would say I prefer a pipe over a cigar, but it's got to be in the right setting, where, like you said, you can take your time and I can enjoy the tobacco and everything along those lines. I mean, so it's I don't like to be rushed. I'm not super proficient. I love seeing the people that can sit there and hold a pipe in their mouth, smoke it for an hour, type, on their keyboard like nothing's happening. I need one hand on my pipe for the most part. There's not much work that happens. It's more of like a meeting and or reading a trade article or something along those lines when I actually can enjoy smoking the pipe or just sitting out back, but there's definitely no work getting done when I'm doing it.
So when you are smoking that pipe, what's the blend? What's your go-to blend what's your favorite?
I am a Virginia smoker as far as the variety of tobacco. I really enjoy Virginias, in particular red Virginias.
Yeah, you guys have a really good red Virginia.
Yeah, there's just a natural sweetness that comes out of it that I really enjoy. But it's a love-hate relationship as a novice pipe smoker that Virginias, you can get them way too hot, way too quick, and then they just light your mouth on fire. And so it's, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. So you'll normally either catch me smoking our red Virginia or you'll catch me smoking the McBaron Scottish mixture. It's kind of their flagship blend that's been around forever. It's a variety. It's like a mixture of, they'll shoot me for not knowing the exact number, but it's literally like 60 different varieties of tobacco in it.
Yeah, I think
you talk about it's one of those old mainstays. I would almost equate to like old number 7, right? Like Jack Daniels were, the guys that are making that. They go through so many barrels to get the right mixture, to get it so it's consistent, and it's been that way forever. And Scottish mixture is just kind of that same thing. Like it's just a wonderful mixture of all these tobaccos that I know why it's their flagship product. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how anybody wouldn't like it. And it's a great go-to for sure.
Yeah, that's really delicious. You were nice enough to give us a little bit when we left down there in Richmond, and I smoked that pretty quickly. And it was yeah, you can understand exactly why that's sort of their standard bearer and their flagship. Do have a quick question that came in from a retailer, Josh Everett's out in Idaho. And Josh often talks about cigars. He's got a great love of cigars and talks about them being a journey. And same thing with pipes, right? But he was actually asking a question. He doesn't offer any pipes or pipe tobaccos currently. His store is about three years old, if I'm not mistaken. So I just kind of was asking a question about what you would recommend to getting started with those types of products for a retailer that might be looking to get into doing some pipe and pipe tobacco.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great question. I think the underlying thing to remember about, say, pipes and pipe tobacco and the smokers that come along with it is that once you get a pipe smoker as a loyal customer, they are loyal. They, no matter how much cheaper they can buy it online, whatever it happens to be, they'll be loyal to you and your store. And it's just the culture of a pipe smoker, especially towards the higher end of the tobaccos. So it's always a good thing to remember. And then also, there's a lot of pipe smokers out there that just do it at home. So you don't even know how many are in your area. And it's good incremental business for a cigar shop. So someone like that, sitting out there, I would recommend starting with some, low to mid-entry pipes. We distribute Brigham pipe.
Oh, we lost you, Jeremy. I think the last thing he was saying is they distribute Brigham pipes. So I don't know if there are.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go.
So we distribute Brigham pipes, which is a great place to start as far as, well-rounded system pipes. And then also we do like a bulk bar, where you bring in bulk tobacco and you sell it by the ounce.
Yeah.
That's a really great place to start, just because you can bring in a lot of different varieties. There's great margin for retailers on it. There's at least your keystone margin, depending on your state, sometimes more. You can have different varieties between your aromatics, your non-aromatics, your English. And you're not sitting there with a $13 tin sitting on your shelf, that appeals to a very small crowd. You're sitting there with a $20 bag of tobacco, right? Pound of tobacco in a jar, and you might have 5 of them or 10 of them, wherever you want to start at. And so, for example, if he reached out to us, our inside sales team could walk him through on our, hey, what would you recommend? I want to build a bulk bar, as an example, as we call it. Okay, well, let's start with 5, and here's a little bit of variety in our best sellers.
Oh, awesome.
we're very fortunate being a manufacturer that we don't have we're not a, importer distributor. I mean, we are of certain products, but not of, obviously all of our tobacco we make. So we don't have old product we're trying to sell and push on people. I've threatened my salespeople's job time and time again. Hey, if someone's not buying our top 10 bulks and I catch you selling them number 30, you're doing them and us a disservice. Because we don't have to make it. We only make it when people want to buy it, right? And they're all great tobaccos, but you're getting into more specialty blends, or someone wants a chocolate pina colada blend, right? Not everybody wants a blend like that,
Right, exactly.
But
that's very specific.
But yeah, so I mean, I think the bulk bar, and I think some, to start with, whether it's basket pipes or, it never hurts to throw one or two decent pipes on your wall, or in a case, because you never know who's coming through that wants to buy them.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've started to understand is that guys who love pipes really love pipes, and they collect them and they buy them. I have a friend that I worked with a really long time ago. He's a big smoker, and he showed me a picture of a case that he has, and he's probably got over 100 pipes, and these are from that he just collects, and he continues to smoke. He's got these old lighters from the 1920s that have clocks and things like that in them and stuff. And pipe guys, they love their pipes and they continue to buy them. So to your point, right, having a few of those may not be a bad idea because people traveling through or whatever. Or to your point, you may have a lot of pipe smokers in the community, but because they're tend to smoke at home or they're not necessarily in the stores, they could be coming around. I don't know if you have the ability to start the camera back up again. I don't know if you had another application or something, but we're not able to see it right now. All good. We can still hear you though. So
no, that's fine. Let me figure out why it's not coming back up.
But to your point with the bulk bar, I witnessed that early on after I started was with the IPCPR back in the day. I went and visited when I was on vacation from my hometown. I went and visited a local tobacconist there. We were chatting, and just in a little while, hey, there we go, back in live again. Excellent. But I chatted with them for probably 45 minutes or an hour or so in their store. And they did have kind of one of those bulk bars, and they probably had a half a dozen that were in there. And I did not see one person go into this cigar humidor when I was there, but I saw 5 or 6 guys come in that 45 minutes and come in and pick out their pipe tobaccos, and then we're gone for the day. And so that was pretty regular. So I asked them, and they said, yeah, that's a fairly rare, regular occurrence for them, is that they have quite a few people coming in and pulling out the bulk, and then they're on their way. They had quite a strong contingency of pipe tobacco customers and pipe smokers that frequented their store.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say, barring legal advice, is that what you'll see in a lot of stores is that it's, where our best-selling bulk is Z92 vanilla custard, right? It's not, you don't have it labeled that in your bar, right? You're calling it Bob's Country Store vanilla, right?
Right.
So that,
or not even vanilla at all.
Right. Or whatever it happens to be, depending on your state or wherever you're at.
Right.
And that's because, we all know that, and trust me, I love them the same, that you can normally buy stuff cheaper online, right? And so, but you can't buy Bob's Country vanilla online, right? You can only buy it in my shop, So you'll see a lot of that where the smoker that's been around forever, you can normally probably tell what it truly is. But at the same time, it does, make you feel as a retailer a little more confident in that, hey, they might try it, and then also that, well, they're not just going to go somewhere else and buy it.
Yeah.
So you'll see that a lot for sure.
Yeah, and what I really like about that, there's a lot of them. We did a show a couple of weeks ago with Pete Johnson and with Phil Ledbetter, and Pete and Phil have a really good relationship, and a lot of manufacturers have relationships that do things with certain stores, whether they have specials. So Phil has this Mardi Gras party every year, and Pete does some exclusive cigars just for that party, right? And so it's the same kind of thing that when I go to my retail store, I like being able to find what's unique from on their shelves, but I'm not going to get anywhere else. Because I know that there's manufacturers that do specific things like that. And so that's something that they can actually do a lot more of themselves with the various pipe tobaccos, which I find really interesting. And I always ask the retailers, because these guys know the products a lot better than I do. Their palates way more often than not are much better than mine, and it kind of helping determine this because this is their profession and this is what they sort of dedicate themselves to. So I like listening to their guidance on kind of where I want to go and find new things. And so having them be sort of that purveyor of, particularly with the pipe tobacco, is a lot of fun to explore with them. And so I do like that aspect of that bulk bar. I love that. Want to shift topics here real quick. We kind of dived into some components earlier than others, but just want to first, for those that may not know, give a little bit about a history about Sutliff and McBaron and kind of what the company's all about, and your story as it relates to your position there and kind of your history within the tobacco business.
No, of course. So Sutliff as a whole is will be 171 years old this year. Sutliff was started by a gentleman, the last name of Sutliff, very original, in California way back in the 1800s. It was moved to Richmond in the early 1900s. Still is, the tobacco capital of the world. And so Sutliff was there. Sutliff's been under a lot of different ownerships along the way. The name Sutliff didn't always stay. For example, our previous owner before McBaron bought Sutliff, it was Altadis. And so it was just Altadis Pipe Tobacco Division, right? There was no Sutliff Tobacco. The name had kind of disappeared. But going back, well, I guess it's creeping up on 7 years now, when McBaron bought Sutliff, they had to come up with what they were going to call it here in the U.S. And there was different things floated. And the then president decided that bringing back the name Sutliff and the nostalgia behind it was the right decision to make. And so here we are being called Sutliff yet again, 171 years later. I was mentioned McBaron buying us. McBaron's a fourth generation family owned company that's creeping up on 142 years old, I think, depending on which date you go by as far as when they started. They're a Danish company in the small city of Svendborg there in Denmark, where all their products manufactured. And so I came to the company 5 years ago this month as the CFO. The then president, Phil Green, had been brought in to help Sutliff out by the Denmark execs and kind of turn it around and I'll say long-term find his replacement. And luckily, Phil found that in me. So he hired me on. I started as CFO. And then as Phil transitioned out and I transitioned into the role, it was a long, process of mentorship and everything over a few years. And so I took this role on as president, I guess 2.5 years ago now. And prior to that, I was never in tobacco. I was an accountant slaving away in manufacturing accounting for public aluminum manufacturers to freight train bearings. I mean, just overhead cranes. And then I found the best industry in the world, the tobacco industry. So
awesome. Yeah. So how has the COVID kind of really affected Sutliff, and how have you guys been doing throughout the last 2.5 months?
Well, I mean, fortunate for us, we've been doing really well.
Great.
Online retailers are a sizable part of our business. Online is at least our big online customers have stayed open and stayed shipping, and I've heard they've had record months. So our volume has moved with that. But the surprising part is, we knew there'd be a pickup in online business. We really thought the brick and mortars would completely fall off, and so our volume would still be drastically down. But surprisingly, brick and mortar orders have been steady. The way, we're in 50 different states. I mean, we actually just shipped tobacco a few days ago to Hawaii, right? I mean, so we literally sell to 50 states, and I think even Puerto Rico, so we get our territory in too. Maybe not Guam, but so. But anyways, you see it in different. Obviously the rules have been different, right? I mean, I've seen online where certain tobacco shops where you stay in your car and they hand it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, these are people's businesses, right? It's their livelihood. This is how they still have to pay rent. B, they still have to pay mortgage and put food on their table. I mean,
exactly.
the industry as a whole, the retailers, I mean, they got creative around the rules that were placed on them by their localities, and our business has stayed steady, and so we really appreciate that. And we haven't had to shut down. We've been, knock on wood, but we've remained COVID free at the factory, and it's been business as usual.
Awesome.
And so yeah, so we're definitely happy to be there to support all the businesses that are still open for sure.
Oh, that's great.
Right.
It's one of those things to where I was asked a question. I was on the Bakersfield Gentleman a couple weeks ago, and they asked me a question. They said, "So you've been smoking more or less since this has happened?" I said, "No, definitely more." And I said, "But it's one of those things to where it's been a big help, to be honest with you, because kind of what we talked about, being able to pause, take a minute. But I mean, really, ultimately, for all the reasons that everybody that's listening understands, the sort of therapeutic and meditative aspects of enjoying a good tobacco product is." And so for me, that's a lot of where a lot of it's come from. I mean, pressure hasn't gone away. We're still, busy as ever here, and more so in a lot of ways, because a lot of the advocacy aspects have kicked up to high gear, because it's not just about the substantial equivalence or the FDA at this point, or even just the usual taxes and smoking bans, but now all the small business stuff that we've been advocating for COVID, and trying to get monies released for, to your point, helping pay for rent, helping pay for utilities, that kind of stuff too, getting us involved in different rounds of the PPP compliance issues, all that stuff, right? So I mean, for me, it's I think a lot of people really have found a lot of solace in the tradition that they always love to turn to, right? Because I mean, that whole sense of remembering when you smoke on those good times, are always those times when relaxing, enjoying company with friends, celebrations, and that stuff is very, very important for somebody's mental state during this time when you're struggling or stressful situations. And so, it really doesn't surprise me that people have continued to purchase the products at this point and finding them where they can.
Good to
hear.
What you said is true. I mean, people are at home, right? I mean, well, not everyone. I mean, you have a huge population where we have record unemployment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then couple that with, you have, like myself, I work from home 3 to 4 days a week, just to, overall reduce exposure for myself, my family, my fellow coworkers, right? Because I have the ability to work from home. And so whether you're working from home or you're unfortunate and you're unemployed, if you enjoy tobacco, you enjoy tobacco, like whether it's pipe tobacco or cigars. And so your opportunity to smoke, I think, has just increased exponentially, right? If you weren't at a place like myself, or, in your special room there at the office where you can smoke, you normally can't smoke at work, and if you can, it's a quick cigarette, right? You don't have time to go sit out on break for an hour and smoke a pipe or smoke a cigar. It's
exactly.
Hey, I got 3 minutes. Let me get a quick drag in and go back to work. So now if you're at home, maybe you can pop out at lunch and enjoy a pipe or whatever it happened to be. And so that demand has never gone away. It's just unfortunate that sometimes it had to move from different channels because of the government shutdowns in different localities. That's really the unfortunate piece.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, then, as we're looking at now, most places are really kind of starting to phase in openings and things like that. Just kind of want to get a quick perspective. It doesn't need to be too in depth, but your outlook and what you're looking at for the second half of 2020, particularly as it relates to pipes and pipe tobacco. You said you had a strong couple of months here. Do you think that that's going to continue with pipes, and do you think that you're going to continue on that trajectory, and how is that outlook looking for you at Sutliff?
Overall, I think we'll stay on a steady course. I think everyone, I think the word is, or trying to figure out what is the new normal going to look like.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what does the new normal look like? Is it 50% of America is going to wear a face mask in public for the rest of their life? Like, I mean, it's nothing to go through an airport back when you actually went to the airport and you would see foreign travelers, certain ones wearing masks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does that become part of the new norm? Is limiting interactions becoming more part of it? I don't think so, but you don't know, right? And I think different pockets are going to react different ways. I think it's best when I talk to my execs in Denmark all the time, And, Denmark is a small country, and they're just that. Like they're one people. I mean, they can argue over like, oh, north, south, east, west. I mean, but all in all, it's like 6 million people in the entire country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can drive from one side of it to the other in like, I don't even know, 4 hours, 3.5. I mean, type of thing. And so then when you equate it to the United States, 40 million people and spread over the 50 states, and I mean the thousands of miles, like there's no one answer and there's no right answer for any last locality. And so I think the new normal is going to be different depending on where you live. We really hope that the brick and mortars are surviving this and come back strong. Sutliff has always prided itself on serving the brick and mortar market and really catering to them as far as the pipe tobacco industry goes. I mean, we've always done business direct with them. We have no minimum quantities. We've tried to do anything and everything we can for brick and mortars along the way. We even developed a few tobaccos that are specifically just for brick and mortars, so they can't be undersold by online customers. So Sutliff's always really prided itself on that. And like I said, instead of having to buy, say, 5 pounds of a bulk, you could buy 8 ounces if you wanted, or 1.5 ounce pouches. So that, we're trying to be conscious of your cash flow as a retailer, knowing that, cash is king. And that's what'll put you out of business, is not having any, right? So we've done a lot over the years to make sure that, we're there for the small retailers, and we've seen the loyalty from them, and we hope that continues, and we hope that they all make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, I know you had a couple questions that you wanted to ask Jeremy. So,
yeah, there are a few scattered. I'm trying to tie into what we're just talking about.
Whoever is asking, I'm married, so sorry.
Well, that one's covered then.
Okay, next question.
Okay, let me ask you this, since we're kind of on the topic. I'm curious, how would you say being a member of the PCA has helped your business over the years?
It's twofold, right? Is that one, whether it's our annual dues we pay or whether we come be part of the show. I mean, I think what gets lost in a trade organization, especially yourself, that is really, founded on retailers and supporting retailers, is the lobbying efforts that go into making sure these asinine restrictions and laws don't go into place in small localities. Yeah. Let alone large localities, right? It's one thing, we're all fighting the big, federal government. But I got to tell you, when I express this concern to Denmark, right, it's not, obviously the FDA is a threat, right? But when I put up a SWOT analysis and put up my biggest, threat, it's literally small government, right? Because in small localities, whether it's state or whether it's county or whether it's city, they literally have a meeting overnight and boom, flavor ban. I mean, they out of nowhere, and next thing you know, you can't sell flavored tobacco to 10 million people in California, and then in 3 days now to the whole entire state of Massachusetts. You can lobby all you want at the federal level, but if you're a brick and mortar in that small location, like that doesn't necessarily put you out of business, but it certainly does not help you stay in business, right? And I mean, so I think that not donating money, because that's the last thing we do. We get a lot from you guys, but being part of that and, kicking up our piece so that, you guys through your lobbying efforts are there fighting that. I mean, I think that's huge, that kind of goes unseen. So that's kind of the first piece of it. And definitely the second piece is the trade show. Unfortunately, with COVID, we couldn't have that this year. But for us, it's never been our strategy to have outside salespeople. We just, we don't have the volume and the portfolio to really support people on the road. So it's the best place to come together and, get new customer acquisition, to have meetings with all of our existing customers. It becomes just kind of one of like, oh no, we'll just see everyone at PCA, right? Like I'll see you in July, type of thing. And so it's, that's one of the other big benefits that we get. So between that, those two, and like I said, I can't say it enough with the retailers. I mean, there's not enough people fighting for what goes on in those small localities. I mean, we're part of lots of trade organizations that are all applicable, and you guys are one of them that we try and support as much as we can. Because like I said, we're seeing it in Massachusetts. I mean, I've spent the last 2 days making lists of non-flavored tobacco that they can sell in their stores. I mean, come on, how ridiculous are we getting? Like, really? Like, you know, and we, like I said, we've seen it in California and all throughout the places. I mean, you know, they're all doing whatever they want in these small localities based on, you know, 6 people's personal opinion. Oh, okay, we're just going to ban all tobacco. Oh, combustible tobacco. Oh, great decision.
Well, that's one of the things to where that's why, you know, we've been focusing so much on a good coordinated ground game across all 50 states as much as we possibly can. And to your point, in California, you know, they had something come up. And we also need to understand, too, is that the anti-tobacco groups that are out there, they don't stop. And they're very, very engaged and active and very well funded. And so you better believe that they know who a lot of these little local officials are that can, on a dime, flip on these certain switches, right? And so in California, something as asinine as, well, if it's ever been described as having notes of chocolate or coffee or non-tobacco flavors, right, then that constitutes a flavored tobacco product. And that doesn't come from the brain of some, you know, local elected official. That was obviously something that's a coordinated effort. And so if we're not being active against the anti-tobacco voices that exist out there, then, you know, they're going to continue to set the narrative, and they're going to continue to have these advocates that just don't know any different. And that's why,
especially for our industry, like, I don't want to say I don't have any problem with science-based, you know, decisions, because there's no science on pipe tobacco because it's so small. Nobody's doing any science on it, right?
Right.
So I'm all for science-based decisions because there is none. You know.
That's what's interesting about the conversations, even at the federal level, that we've had, is that they talk about cigars, because cigars has become an issue with, you know, youth smoking, the terminology, right? And that's why the terminology for cigars versus other things, cigarettes, vaping, others, is important, because that's what they're looking at. And they're looking at the usage and the usage statistics and the usage rates among youth for those specific types of products. Right. None of that exists for pipe tobaccos, because it doesn't exist because they don't do it. And the challenge, you know, for pipes, it's pretty well understood. For the cigars, the challenge really is ultimately that, for whatever reason, the focus shifts to the product as opposed to the usage. Now that we actually have the science and the data that backs it up from the government themselves about the product usage and who's using it, how often. So it's a really interesting kind of way that and strategy that we use to employ on when it comes to public policy for those types of things. But to your point, anything that's any legislation really kind of starts at a very local level. You get one municipality that thinks, oh, hey, we're going to ban this, or we're going to tax this, or do X, Y, Z, and then they all meet. They all have their networks of people too that they have, and so then they tell their person, who then 40 counties now, and suddenly it's a statewide issue, and then 2 or 3 states, now suddenly it's a national issue, and then
it's the same thing. You know, a county in this state does something, and then they've got a friend in another state, or they're at some convention, and next thing you know, some county in another random state is enacting the same policy. I mean, if government data is concerned, it's a cigar. Like, it's taxed as a cigar. It's a cigar. Like, I mean. And I get it, when you want to do statistics and numbers, like, you can skew the data just about any way you want, right? To be your story and be your message. And unfortunately, I mean, that's where our industry gets caught up in, is a broad definition and broad characteristics, you know, throughout the industry. And then, you know, we get swept into it. I mean, you can normally, when it comes to pipe tobacco, you'll read a new law or legislation, or you'll read the data, and pipe tobacco will be mentioned nowhere except that it's like banned under the OTP. Like, it'll be mentioned once in what they're banning, and not once in data or anything, because there's none on it. It's not a hot topic. But then all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's banned too, because it's in the other tobacco product category. Yeah. You know, and so, you know, poor us. You know, I know. You know. Everyone's picking on us. That's fine. I mean, we still manage to survive. Yeah,
regardless, that's gonna always be our normal, right? And so that's that's why we're continuing to, can put the pressure on where we can, and building out more in different strategies of our ground game and kind of being more on the offensive than the defensive in a lot of ways, because we know.
I remember when the FDA, the deeming regs first came out, and there was all sorts of different conferences, no matter who they were put on by, which trade organization. And I was at this one, and this public health official they worked for NYU, and researcher, scientist, whatever they happen to be. I mean, this is a great presentation and these wonderful 4D charts and all these bubbles of it was a low risk versus modified risk versus this and attractability. And I mean, they modeled all these things and put, tobacco products in groups, and based on, like I said, like its attractability to youth, it's, danger, it's this. And pipe tobacco was like in like this horrible category. And it was actually listed on her chart. And I had lunch with her, and I said, God, you put pipe tobacco in this horrible category. I said, you must have research, right, on like why it's all these things. And she's like, well, no. And I was like, well, how did you put it in this bubble then?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I'm like, I said, do you even know like how pipe tobacco is literally consumed and how hard it is to learn how to smoke a pipe and to keep a pipe lit? Like there's a reason youth does not use a pipe. Like it is not easy and it's expensive.
Yeah. Right? Exactly.
Like, and then I was like, because if you have research, I would love to see it. Like, here's my card. And she was like, yeah, no, we don't have any. I said, would you plan on ever studying it? She's like, no. And it's like, okay, well, thank you. Like, but yeah.
So let's just arbitrarily slap it into this category because we want to.
Because it's combustible tobacco.
Exactly.
It's like premium cigar. It's a combustible tobacco. It's horrible for you. So, I mean, like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look, we've got the studies that show that, the average user has no difference on the health continuum than a non-premium cigar user or a pipe smoker. And it just, I mean, again, to your point, though, I mean, you cannot pick and choose when science is going to inform public policy. Either it's going to or it's not. And just because you happen to have a preconceived notion about, combustible tobacco does not mean you get to pick and choose your own facts. Like Ricky Gervais says, you're not entitled to your own facts. You can have your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. Right.
And I mean, I would say I'm a very common sense. I feel like I'm a very common sense approach to things. Not being political, left, right, whatever. But if you want to use real data and have a real conversation around it and use it all the time, then I probably get behind you and can go for it. But when we pick and choose, as you said, I mean, that becomes where you take issue, right? Like, and nobody's okay with that, right? And then it just doesn't make any sense. Like, but how are you making this statement? Because you have nothing to back it up. Like, but you can't argue with that, right? I mean, there's no changing people's minds when it comes to certain things, and it's just like, okay, we'll just move on.
Right, because that's the challenge. If I'm not reasoned into my bias against combustible tobacco, it's going to be very difficult, maybe even impossible, to reason you out of that bias. And so,
because it's not like you're saying, hey, I did this survey and 100 people said this. And then I bring you a survey and said, well, no, look, I did the same survey and 100 people said just the opposite. Now we have two sets of facts that we can negotiate over and discuss. But when it's all just a matter of conjecture and opinion, like, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and there lies the challenge. So let's talk about something a little bit more exciting. Then let's talk about what you have on schedule for Sutliff. Do you guys have any sort of new releases or anything kind of exciting that's coming out the second half of this year? I mean, I know some people plan things around the trade show, but what can retailers look forward to coming from Sutliff this year? And we can also talk about you're distributing 4 different brands of premium cigars too. So we can talk about that too.
Sure. I mean, talking about pipe tobacco to start with, we do have some new launches planned. We had some planned for PCA show, as we always try and do, to give something new there. But we've obviously postponed that. We're trying to figure out when we're actually going to launch them at this point. But we do have a couple of Sutliff branded products that'll be coming out here this year. And I definitely one new McBaron product that'll be out on the market this year, maybe 2. If not, it'll trickle into 2021. So definitely stay tuned for those. They hopefully won't disappoint. And when we're talking about new pipe projects or pipe tobacco projects, one of the interesting things about Sutliff is we make, and I've never actually counted how many, but at least 100 to 150 private label SKUs.
Wow.
So a lot of new launches, like we're working on 7 right now for a company, and we just did 7 for them. They're not on our name, right? Like, so it's not a Sutliff new launch.
Gotcha.
So there's so many projects that we do. Seattle Pipe Club is a really big blend, or a big brand for pipe tobacco users. This year we created, we took the Mississippi River and we aged it in rum barrels, for example. And we made a rum barrel aged, and then the same thing with their plum pudding. We aged it in some whiskey barrels.
Sounds great.
So there's different ones that, again, that's a private label. Like some people know we make it, some people don't. But either way, it's one of those things where we're always doing, different projects. And there's a really good chance when there's a new release in the industry, especially in the US, I mean, there's only a few manufacturers left, right? And there's only a few that, when there's even fewer that will do private label projects because the minimum quantities are so little, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but along that, in speaking what we do for retailers to help retailers, I mean, there's some relatively small retailers that they come to us and they say, hey, it's my 20th anniversary and I'd really like to do a 20th anniversary tin. Like, what can you do for us? And so we try and keep the minimum quantities and the expense way down for them. And then we'll make, say, 500, but we'll sell them 200 this month and then 200 the next month so that they can help pay for them. And so we've done some of those this year. And again, I mean, we're pretty much open to anything to help out a retailer for sure. Speaking of cigars, this year, Sutliff decided that we should get into the distribution of other products. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we distribute Brigham pipes and accessories and cigar accessories also under Brigham out of Canada. And we've had that partnership for several years now and love working with them and their products. But we've decided to expand it a little bit more. In a non-tobacco, we got into HumiSmart, which is a 2-way humidification, all natural product that's out on the market now. And it's a wonderful, like I said, biodegradable, all natural. It's got fibers in it, no nasty salts or anything like that. So we're the U.S. distributor of that product, which is doing really well. And then we got into the cigar world a little bit. We've got 4 brands with hopefully about 4 more coming soon that we're distributing. Those being Adventura, Regis, Patina, and Platinum Nova. And so we're really excited to have those guys on board and adding some more to our portfolio. They're all kind of boutique blends, and I say we earn their business and trust by kind of really telling them that, hey, we have big company resources with our parent company in Denmark and things like that, but we're going to treat you like you're a huge cigar company. We're going to treat you right, and you're going to get reports and get paid on time, and your brokers will get paid, and you don't have to worry about, like, if it's coming. Like, I actually guarantee them payment within like 5 days after the month's over, and they're like, oh, you're going to pay me when? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Like,
that's awesome.
So it's been great. I mean, we have a great relationship with them. Those brand owners are awesome. They're willing to do just about anything to help us out, to help themselves out, and they're quality cigars, and I mean, they're really good cigars, and it's been nice because now I have a humidor filled with cigars that I get to smoke. So
yeah,
there's nothing ever wrong with that also. So,
very true. Very true.
Yeah, and we're just if customs will ever approve it, we built another humidor at our place. It's a bonded warehouse, so we can bring them in, pre-tax to help them out. It's again, if you're a small boutique company, right, cash is king. If you're paying 42 cents excise tax on every stick up front, right, it's kind of a trickle effect. You got to pay all this tax. You only have so much cash, so you make smaller orders, which then normally you pay a higher price, right? So, so it's like, okay, well, I would have loved to order, 20,000 sticks, but I can't afford it, and tax is part of that. Yeah. So this hopefully will help these smaller guys bring in some more, get a little more competitive on their pricing, save some cash up front. So hopefully that will be approved here over the next, week or two, whenever customs comes out. So
that's fantastic. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Keep us posted on that so we can let all the people know.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, Aaron, did you want to have
Yeah. I mean, kind of changing it up a little, just, in the past couple of months with everything shifting and having a lot more time at home. I'm curious if you, like, just in your personal life, have you taken up any new hobbies or? Yeah.
No, I have a 12-year-old at home, and I have what is she, 18, 19-month-old at home.
So you're pretty busy.
More time at home, which is great. Is just more time with the kids. There's definitely hasn't been a hobby. Well, actually, there is a new hobby, and it's social distancing, social hour, like drinking hour in my neighbor's driveways, right? Like,
nice.
So we're in the suburbs of Richmond in a nice little planned community, and so we all get out in our bring our lawn chairs, and we sit out there and we stay 6 feet apart from each other, and we have drinks.
That's great.
Try and feel normal, and then we get the cops called on us one night because we had more than 10 people in our yard. And
oh, geez.
So the cops came and told us we had to break it up or go under 10. So yeah.
When you start talking about bringing out like lawn chairs and things like that, I got visions of King of the Hill with you guys just sitting back there pounding some beers.
Oh, we do. I mean, but and also because we're trying to be responsible, so we're not, like it's not like we're just in a house and I go and pour you a drink or vice versa, you pour me drinks, right? So we all like bottles are everywhere, coolers, right? Because you have to bring your own. So you're sitting there with like I got a bottle of like my Bullet sitting there, my Basil Hayden, but the good part about that is I'm able to smoke though, because not obviously, but most people don't want you to smoke in their house. Same at my house. So now when I'm sitting in the driveway, instead of like at your bar hanging out, I can smoke.
Right.
And so it actually has been nice for that matter. I mean, there's 3 of us guys that normally get together with a bunch of other people. But yeah, we're like, hey, what are you smoking? Hey, I brought you one, like.
Perfect. Nice. So do all your whiskeys have to start with a B?
No.
Well, you said Bullet and Basil Hayden. I was just wondering if you just stick with it has to start with B.
No, those are just my go-tos right now, I would say, for it. So I can't help it,
Nice. So speaking about like sitting around and pipe smoking, what was the first pipe that you ever smoked? Do you have a little story you can share?
It's not cool.
That makes it better.
I had never smoked a pipe before, right? I mean, I smoked a few cigars on the golf course here and there. So when I started at Sutliff, I said, well, I probably ought to figure out how to smoke a pipe. We were distributing Brigham pipes at the time, like we still are. So I went out and got one of the Brigham Algonquins out of Emmons. Actually, I just went to a guy and said, hey, can you give me a pipe? Like, I want to smoke. And that's what he handed me. It was probably because it was returned for having scratches on it or something, sure, I'll smoke a scratch pipe, and then I also said, well, I want to smoke something that'll probably taste good and not be harsh. So I'll go smoke a cherry tobacco. I mean, that stuff smells amazing. And like, it's got to taste, that's got to taste great. I mean, I remember smoking like Swisher Sweets back in like college, or, tying one on and like smoking this sweet little cigar. So I'm like, cherry, I mean, that'll probably be a similar experience. And it was everything but. The room note was great. My office smelled wonderful, but it was all I could do to try and get the thing lit. And then I couldn't suck any air through it because I packed it too tight. And then I unpacked it, and then I repacked it. And then I'm sitting there with like a regular lighter, like just burning my finger. And, and then when I finally do get it lit, it's like flaming hot and it's burning my mouth and my tongue. Like, it was just a complete shit show. I mean, that's all there was to it. And then over time, I watched a few podcasts, talked to a few experts. Like, we have one of the better, master blenders, if not the best in the world. Per Jensen out of Denmark. And so when Per was over one time, I said, Per, like, help me out, man. Come on, like, teach me how to smoke a pipe. This is embarrassing, So yeah, and it's gotten a little bit better at this point, but no awesome story, just a travesty, really. So.
I don't know. I think that's a pretty great story. I really appreciated that.
No, and I love the idea of being a pipe smoking, or probably got an apprenticeship in pipe smoking. That's effectively kind of what you were looking for.
Yeah.
I would love to get that apprenticeship.
Yeah. Someone
Yeah.
take me under their wing, please. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had
So
that
now-
a little bit when I was at TAA, and they had some pipes and stuff that they were doing for an event, and I'd never really smoked one before, right? I just had some pups off of my dad's way back in the day, and so yeah, some of them were like, okay, do this, the packing, and we got the tool and everything else, and here's how you do it, and pack it down and just light it, and I said, okay, so I got used to it and fell in love with it immediately. But nothing as glamorous as yours.
So now that you've been there a little while and you've mastered this skill of pipe smoking, what would you say is like your favorite part of your job?
There's several favorite parts. The first one is if you have come to my office, like I have a full bar in my office, and like a sofa and a couple nice comfy chairs off to the side. And so when I get to sit there and read a trade periodical and smoke a pipe and have a glass of bourbon or scotch, it's a nice benefit, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's required. I mean, you do have to keep up on all this industry stuff going on. So that's obviously a really nice part. The Danes are amazing to have for bosses and part of I feel like part of the family over there. They're beyond great to work for. And then overall, it's really the camaraderie, not just with, I'll say the first several years of my career with Sutliff, it was really focused on retailer interaction, customer interact, like our direct customer interaction, not the consumer interaction. And then a few years ago, I kind of started thinking like, well, why aren't we doing more to engage the consumer? Like, we have to have a push-pull mentality, right? We can push the retailers, but we need the consumers going in there also asking for it, right? So I joined a lot of Facebook pages. Like at Thanksgiving, I invited different people just on a pipe smoking page. I said, hey, if anybody's in Richmond the day before Thanksgiving, you want to come spend a couple hours with me? Like, come on, I'll buy you lunch. Nice. Give you free tobacco. We'll hang out. Like, we'll just BS, And so I had 4 or 5 guys that came in, and we just had a really good time. We've continued to do that. The Richmond Pipe Club used to have a pretty big pipe show years ago, and 2 years ago they brought it back into Richmond, and we partnered with them where we did like factory tours and blending seminars.
I remember that.
At our factory, and then the next day was the pipe show where they had it like at the Moose Lodge. And then last year we said, well, hey guys, why don't we just do it all here at Sutliff? So we set up huge tents in our backyard, we'll call it that. And we brought in, I think we had, 70 different vendors. With the vendors and people that came, we had almost 300 people there. Nice. And we gave factory tours, we ran blending seminars, there was a whole pipe show, and just spending the day. And then we opened up, we have live music and keg beer all for free, and I even paid for lunch for everyone. We actually my employees grilled out for everyone that day, and we just had a great time. And that interaction with the actual, I'll say, consumer / smoker in our industry is amazing. Kind of as I was talking with the first question out of Idaho about pipe smokers being loyal, they're the same as far as like really nice people and really fun to talk to. Appreciative that we host it. They get a chance to see a pipe tobacco factory, the same tour you guys had. And they get to go on tours of it. So this year we're doing it again, October 2nd and 3rd. We're doing a 2-day event. Where Friday is going to be loaded with the factory tours, blending seminars. We're going to do like special 4-hour-long blending seminars with Per Jensen out of Denmark's coming over to run those. Nice. There'll be limited seating for them and stuff. And then we're going to go into like a dinner that night, and we're just going to, instead of like kicking everyone back to their hotel, we're just going to open up the tents out back and like let everyone hang out and smoke. And we've got some people doing live broadcasts and interviews from there. And then the next day is just the show. And so we'll do the show all day on Saturday. And then that evening, again, I'm bringing in a band. Well, not a band. He's a one-man band. And beer and food. And it's just a fun, chill atmosphere. And that interaction is last year I was up from, I think I got there at 4 a.m. and left at midnight. And I mean, I was having a blast. I mean, and I wasn't even drinking either. I didn't have time to. But because that day, I think I personally made 25 gallons of coffee for all the people there, like running around. So, I mean, the
Nice.
pipe smokers love their coffee too. So.
Yeah. So an interesting story is a good friend of mine. His uncle is the head of and I love the name. It's called the Conclave of Richmond Pipe Smokers. They call it CORE, right?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Which guy?
I think his uncle's name is Bob, or is it I think he's the head of CORE, what they call him.
Okay, well, there's a bunch of them on the committee, so yeah. But no, they're all great guys. We have them into the factory a bunch.
Yeah. So he's the one that first kind of alerted me and said, "Hey, we're going to be doing this thing in Richmond." I was going to try to come down to it, but then I was traveling for PCA, and then when we were going to do it last year, and then same kind of thing happened where I wasn't able to get down there because we had a family thing. But yeah, so I knew it was going to be in the fall, so. Hopefully, all things considered, you guys can still have that because I'd love to come down to it this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're planning on it. We think that, it's like I said, the first weekend in October. So we hope, I mean, for everyone's sake, for lots of reasons, not just for our show, that we're able to have events like that come October. So we're definitely planning on it. And like, we just booked it. Like because it's been evolving every year, getting bigger and stuff. And we got some support from another big online company that has really good relationships with international carvers and things like that. So we're really hoping to step up like the international carvers at the show, things along those lines, and just make it that much better of a show. So like this year we got a whole block of rooms, a couple hundred blocks of rooms at the Omni downtown. But not only that, like I went ahead and already booked. Like we have our own smoking area designated at the Omni already. Like I rented that out already,
Nice.
Like thinking ahead, like, when they leave there, everyone likes to sit around and smoke back at the hotel.
Yeah.
But I mean, smoking is not allowed most places. Right. So they had like the pool deck isn't open in Virginia in October. So like we rented out the pool deck so they can go out there and smoke. Like,
excellent.
So we're trying to make it just a fun experience. Just for people to come, and have a good time and support the vendors, that come, selling their pipes and part of the trade. If you come down, you'll see is a lot of what they call estate pipes, right? Most pipes in people's collection are used pipes, right? Like the estate pipe market is huge. And so at these shows, you'll find all kinds of one-offs where, someone's big into buying and selling estates and things like that. So they can be very interesting for sure.
Yeah. That's great. Hopefully it's like in that sweet spot where it's still kind of warm enough and it hasn't hit the cold to where the experts, which I know that opinions are all over the place in terms of how this all hits, but people talk about second waves and things like that. Hopefully you're kind of in that sweet spot and the event is not so big that they're going to want to shut it down or anything like that, because I think it'd be a great thing to be able to have people come back out and enjoy this, something people look forward to. So we are right up at our, we're right up at our hours. To say, if you have any additional questions, Aaron or Jeremy, anything else additional you wanted to talk about here, want to be respectful of your time, and thank you for joining us here. But anything else, Aaron or Jeremy, before we let Jeremy get back to his 12-year-old, 18-month-old?
If you have one quick piece of advice for someone who's just starting out in the industry, what would that be?
Well, if you're a pipe smoker yourself, have patience. And if you're a retailer, the same, have patience. The whole Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. I firmly believe that the building a pipe following in your store is kind of the same. You have to have the tobaccos, you have to have the pipes, and you have to give it time, right? And as you do those things, then it will become a nice ancillary part of your business. So just give it time and it'll work, and work with, Sutliff, only, of course, to get you all the tobaccos you need. We'll point you in the right direction.
Excellent.
Nice.
So yeah, but thank you guys so much for having me. I really enjoyed the last hour, Scott and Aaron. It's been a blast, and hopefully we'll see you at the show, and also see you well before that some other place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you again. All my best to the Sutliff Company, all of the people there that we've met when we've come down there, and also to your family as well. Be safe, and we will definitely see you as soon as we possibly can.
Okay, great, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks,
You
Jeremy.
too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And just for everybody else out there that's listening, tomorrow we're going to have our federal affairs update again as our 3 at 3. So you're going to join in, and Josh Oberski and Patrick Anderson and myself will be talking about a lot of the various things that we've got going on in all of our advocacy efforts that are out there, how it relates to a lot of issues that are kind of going on right now at various levels of what Congress is looking at doing for the next package, and some additional things we got going on. Plus, we'll talk about the blueprint that we released. So yeah, join us tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Aaron, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thank you everybody for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you.